Miniature humbuckers, deeply underused and overlooked in the modern era in my opinion. These deserve a bit more love. P90s recently have had a bit of a resurgence in popularity, and I feel like these are the yin to P90's yang. If a P90 is a single coil with all the beef and aggression of a humbucker, then mini humbuckers are a bucker with all of the clarity and precision of a single coil. But instead of shelling for whatever pickup company is paying my video rates this week, I thought I'd grab the parts and make my own, so you can see what's inside a mini humbucker and the process it takes to manufacture a pickup. While I get to winding those coils, let's catch you up on where this design came from. The brief history is that Gibson acquired the mini humbucker design when they bought Epiphone in the 1950s, giving Gibson a third pickup format to play around with outside of their established P90 and full-sized humbucker designs. Initially, mini humbuckers were supposed to be a point of distinction between the Epiphone and Gibson brands. You'd only get the minis on the cheaper Epis, and when you were ready to spend real money on something more professional, you'd step up to a Gibson with the full fat buckers. But as time went on, Gibson started to realise the value of using these on their flagship products. Minis are a whole 10mm narrower than full fat humbuckers, but more importantly, 6mm narrower than P90s. The Mini will fit entirely within a P90 route with no modification, making it an obvious cost-saving choice for Gibson. Instead of having to retool the machines to cut entirely different routes in the body, like they had to do for the PAFs, they could use the existing P90 tooling and install mini humbuckers and mounting rings adapted from P90 covers. Seriously, if you haven't looked closely at one of these 70s Les Pauls before, it's just the P90 version of the guitar with the mini humbuckers sitting within hollowed out plastic P90 covers, marketed as deluxe. Mini humbuckers were incredibly prevalent in Gibson guitars throughout the 1970s precisely for this reason. The 70s were a time of financial uncertainty, to put it lightly, but a huge era for guitar bands. So big guitar companies like Gibson and Fender had to find ways to cut costs on production while still offering guitarists instruments that didn't compromise on their needs. Mini humbuckers allowed Gibson to still offer both P90 and humbucking options, but also save money by being able to use the same body tooling for both. These originally being the budget option that got a premium marketing glow-up, coupled with all of the other unusual design choices that made the 70s era's guitars unpopular amongst the purists, is probably why mini humbuckers have been languishing with this reputation of being just a worse humbucker for a long time, which I feel is deeply unfair to the pickup. There's nothing really different in the construction of these minis compared to a traditional humbucker. Everything is just narrower. We have our nickel-silver base plate onto which the rest of the pickup is constructed. An all-nickel bar magnet which will magnetise the core of each coil. Two narrow plastic bobbins onto which the coils are wound. These are each 5mm narrower than those found on a big humbucker. In the centre of one bobbin, we find these 6 adjustable screws. Again, smaller than the ones you'd find on a big bucker. And the other bobbin features an iron bar. This is the biggest deviation from the PAF design, where the second coil features individual cylindrical iron slugs. I wound both coils on both humbuckers to around 4,000 turns, really just tightly packing the bobbin with 42 gauge copper and seeing how much I could fit on there. This gives us a DC resistance reading of approximately 3.6k per coil, or 7.2k for the complete humbuckers, which again tells you literally fuck all about how it's going to sound or perform. DC resistance is just an easy to measure reference point to know how much copper is on the coils. In order to differentiate the neck and bridge positions, I put a stronger all-nickel 5 magnet in the bridge position, which will give a bit more output and bite, which is often necessary to balance the tone of the neck humbucker, where I've opted for a weaker all-nickel 2 magnet because I want to control the low end. Adjusting the heights of the pickup from the strings upon install will help match the output levels, and the differing magnet strengths will then be acting with the permeability of the coils and their cores to modify the inductive properties, generating a signal with the desired tone. Finally, we are dropping the completed pickups into molten wax. This is a process called potting. The liquid wax penetrates all of the airspace in the coils, driving out all the air bubbles. And once the pickups are removed and the wax is allowed to cool, this consolidates the coils, ensuring no loose parts are free to independently rattle around. Doing this significantly reduces microphonic behaviour in the pickup, ensuring the signal we hear is generated by the strings and not by every tiny movement and sound source in the pickup's vicinity. So what kind of sounds can you expect from a Mini Humbucker then? Well, you retain all the benefits of a humbucker, of course. 2 series coils, wound in the reverse of each other, different magnetic polarity on each, strengthening the signal while phase cancelling the hum. The narrower pickup means a narrower field of view on the strings, so much like single coils, you get a more focused bandwidth, making them sound more precise. The output of these is a little lower than a vintage PAF style humbucker and more on par with the hotter single coils that were coming out at the end of the 70s, but without that snappy, quacky character that single coils are known for. So you're looking at something with more clarity and precision than a full humbucker, but with a smoother quality than a single coil, while still providing a powerful, noiseless pickup. Which honestly makes me wonder why we don't see them paired with single coils more often. If you wanted an HSS Strat that had a decent tonal balance between its bridge humbucker and its single coils, a Mini Humbucker would be a really great choice for that, and I think it would look sick too. I also occasionally see Mini Humbuckers used in the neck position of a Telecaster, which makes a lot of sense. This will give you more power than a Tele neck pickup, but it will still fall more tonally in line with what Telecasters are all about than a full-size humbucker. For now though, I'm going to throw these into my gold top Les Paul, which will give me a direct comparison between these minis and the PAF style humbuckers currently installed there. Now these will be installed on a couple of cheap black conversion rings, so it's not going to look great on this guitar, but it's just to test out the sounds. I wound this set about 2 or 3 years ago now, and I've never had them in a guitar, so I've got no idea what this particular set sounds like. But I've yet to wind a coil that sounds like shit, so let's get these in here and riff out on some Thin Lizzy and other 70s rock. Well, I guess when I said Thin Lizzy and other 70s rock, what I really meant was Thin Lizzy and Ozzy Osbourne. But I'm not even going to apologise for that. I wanted to hear what these minis would sound like under a lot of rock distortion because that's literally the only context I'm interested in. I'm very happy with how tight and precise these are, even despite the distortion. The full-size PAFs are a fair bit more chaotic in the frequency space and are difficult to make sound this focused. That focus came entirely naturally to the minis, but the trade-off is that it's almost impossible to make them sound chaotic. I think I'd want these in a studio guitar. There have been times where I've been needing that humbucker sound, but I couldn't get the tightness I wanted, and these would fix that. One guitar part played with these minis, doubled up with a second guitar that features a ruder pickup, like a P90, would generate a monster sound on record. The focused nature of them really suits the Les Paul. It balances that guitar out and brings it far closer to a Strat response. Strats, by their construction and scale length, tend to sound a lot tighter and punchier than a Les Paul anyway, so I'm desperate to find out how these minis would sound in the bridge position of a Strat. I don't think this Les Paul will be their forever home, but I'm kind of into the no pickguard black plastics look on the gold top, so I might change up the aesthetic for a bit. Also, maybe if I find a beat up P90 Les Paul out there going for a good price, maybe I'll grab it for a renovation and that can be my Mini Humbucker studio guitar. Anyway, thank you for indulging me on this little exploration of Mini Humbuckers. Let me know what you think about them in the comments. That's all for now. Keep it loud. Stay safe.